Welcome. It's the Matt Sager Podcast. I am Matt Sager. It's Thursday, April 4th of 2019. And wow, we have a Joker trailer. First off, I apologize. I was unable to do the show last night because I was renovating the home studio and there were issues going on with various podcast syndicators. It's a whole thing. But it all got resolved. Particularly the home studio part, which hopefully will translate into better audio for this show. Not that it wasn't great already. I actually think it kind of was, but it's always good to not rest on your laurels, to not stay in your comfort zone, to say, I can always do better and should be. It's unfortunate when that results in a missed show, but, honestly, it's for the best. It means I'll be even better tonight and going forward in terms of audio. In terms of content, well, that's on me. But yes, yesterday saw the release of the first trailer for The Joker, or rather Joker as I believe it's being called. One word, single title. This, of course, is the film directed by Todd Phillips and produced by Martin Scorsese, which is unbelievable. That is a huge deal. This is his first comic book project, just as it's Robert De Niro's first comic book project. De Niro revealed in the trailer, spoiler alert, just for the trailer, but wanted to give you that heads up. De Niro's role is revealed, and it's awesome. He has come out and said it's not as cool as we think, but I choose to think it is. This is all science fantasy, goofball, comic book fiction. So, it is to be interpreted by the viewer just as much as it is by the producer. That's certainly a comic book type tradition. That said, De Niro's role is that of a rather flashy TV talk show host, a late night talk show host, who looks remarkably familiar to fans and who is not a fan of the King of Comedy. This talk show host's name is Murray Franklin. Now, for those who have not seen King of Comedy, but who have seen sort of New York centric, like late night Channel 9 before it was part of any network television, it seems that honestly this character is a bit of a throwback to a younger Joe Franklin. But it is very hard to look at this character who has been de-aged pretty well and not think a little bit about Rupert Pupkin. This is set in, I believe, 1981, this version of the Joker. It does not look as though there will be a Batman, although there is a clear, once again, I'm giving out a spoiler alert for the trailer, not for the film. I know nothing of the film other than what's been revealed in this trailer, the link to which I'll include in the description for tonight's podcast episode. So, with that out of the way, we do see him appearing at the gates of Arkham Hospital. We do see him being dismissed quite nastily, perhaps setting off a grudge of some kind, from someone who appears to be Thomas Wayne. Lots of little Batman Easter eggs, but nothing to suggest that this is going to be anything like the kind of Joker movie anyone would expect. It all pointed to a maniac who probably turns violent, definitely wears makeup, who appears, honestly, to most resemble the Joker from Batman the Killing Joke, not the awful animated version that was released in, I want to say 2015 or 2016, but the classic Alan Moore and Brian Bolland graphic novel from the 80s. A version who, traits of that version of the Joker, it was such a definitive, great standalone origin story for the character, not the least of which because it was told in a way that made you doubt almost everything. The Joker himself, retelling his origin story, is a very unreliable narrator. And it looks as though that element of the narrative will be included, will tie in the various threads of Joker. That for many scenes, or at least bits of many scenes, you might see, for instance, the real-world version of what's actually happening with this crazy clown walking around and probably getting into some sort of violence. And then at some point, for moments during scenes or for parts of scenes or possibly for entire scenes, you'll instead see the world through the eyes of this Arthur Fleck. Someone also pointed out, by the way, one thing about the Joker that has been consistent for some time is that when his name is spoken, and it's not very often, he's meant to be this enigmatic, like, what is his origin? Is it this version? Is it this story? Is it this one? Is it pre-crisis, post-crisis, golden age? And I think the comics of late have really tapped into that. Again, Alan Moore was there first. He really got into the idea and really used it to brilliant effect of the idea that for a maniac, what is origin and what is fiction? Probably even they can't tell. But he did occasionally have a name, and it was almost always Jack Napier. So this appearance of A. Fleck in the upcoming Joker would be a first. So who is Arthur Fleck? A great question, and one that points to the idea that maybe this is a precursor to the Joker who eventually fights Batman. Because this version of the Joker being around when Bruce Wayne is a kid, Thomas Wayne is alive, would mean that by the time he eventually meets Batman, he'd be quite a lot older than him. And eventually that would really become a disadvantage. The Joker would not continue to be a more canny, more competent foe as time goes on, which has been the case. So maybe this is some kind of progenitor to the Joker. Maybe it's somebody who trains him, and maybe it just takes place in a completely different standpoint standalone universe. You know, the other night on this podcast, I discussed Marvel's What If series. DC has something similar, which they used to refer to in the comics as Elseworlds, a name you're probably familiar with as the tie-in of all the various CW Arrowverse shows from summer of 2018. That name Elseworlds originally belonged to a line of comics that DC would put out every couple of years, and one was a really great one, Batman Gotham by Gaslight, which showed a 1920s noir Batman defending in very cool Art Deco-looking Gotham. One of my favorites was Superman Red Son, which was just, what if, instead of landing in Kansas, Kal-El, little baby Cal, had instead landed in the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War, and what a different history we'd have. That was a great one, but there were many excellent ones. And that same concept may be one of the things they're doing to help sort of free up and branch out and explore different things within their cinematic universe. I do think that DC has kind of looked around and said, all right, we tried to, if not eclipse Marvel, beat them at their own game. We started very late. We started under the, and I'm sorry, I don't like shitting on this guy, but we started under the helm of Zack Snyder. We brought him in because we really loved what he did with The Watchmen. It seemed that he was a very visionary, bold director. Turns out he's a little bit nuts. And so, yeah, Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel, Justice League, those did not work out very well for us. And now we kind of have to start again. Part of that clearly means, from what we've seen of the upcoming Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey movie, the very nearly here Shazam coming out on April 5th, and of course from last year even Aquaman, that a part of the strategy means embracing the fun, the levity, the silliness inherent to comics. Not silliness alone, not without drama and stakes and things of that nature, but when everyone is at their worst, their gloomiest, their most combative, ready to kill each other for no reason. When the movie starts, well, that's not very fun. It also kind of really lowers the stakes, as far as I can tell, for any possibility of drama and tension. Characters are dark and gloomy and miserable when you meet them, ready to kill each other when they meet, dark, gloomy, and miserable at the end. So comedy is certainly one thing to embrace. But now, as Marvel closes out what they call the Infinity Saga, a 22-movie, a full decade old now, run of some of the world's most popular and most loved and successful films, creating a franchise that is the most lucrative in the world at this point. It's eclipsed Star Wars. DC, meanwhile, I mean, it is certainly great that Shazam looks really good, and even better that they've now got James Gunn aboard for Suicide Squad. There's a lot of really good stuff happening. Will Smith's Deadshot, who was hardly like a problem with the film, or if it was, there was so much else wrong with it that by the time you notice that, it's like, who cares? But he has left the project and is being replaced in the role by Idris Elba. Now, no offense to Will Smith at all. He is a great actor. He lightens up just about every scene he's in, which is sort of part of the problem with a role like Deadshot. Now, I don't fault him with the character being a little bit silly. There was nothing in that movie that wasn't extremely silly, but I'm always really excited when Idris Elba rolls around. But in addition to this fun, lighthearted take on the characters, these more adventurous versions of what was once a very market-tested, very corporatized, buttoned down, and all right, the research shows people are going to love this kind of movie. The research obviously failed. So they're turning not only to comedy, but to this concept of the multiverse, bringing in niche characters or ersatz versions of characters, alternate Earth versions of the same characters. That is what Joker looks like to me, and what I believe it's going to turn out to be. I suspect much of what lured Martin Scorsese to the project, to say nothing of Robert De Niro, is an assurance that they wouldn't be held to any of the various rules and regulations and stuff needing to be approved by various accountants, comic book story editors, license managers. You know, despite what some of these awful movies turn out to be, Man of Steel, Justice League, Batman vs. Superman, etc., could not have been made without the authorization of a lot of higher-ups who work with DC at Warner Brothers. And it's not just that it had to follow basic Warner Brothers rules. There are rules that are specific to Superman, Batman, the Justice League, etc. It looks as though Joker is completely removed from that. And as such, it would not be shocking if there was some really, like, hardcore, not to dismiss the drama and stakes inherent to comic book movies, there is some, but this might be a very real-world Joker, which might be disturbing in a way that even the most sick version of the comic book version may not be. That is what I sense. What was pointed out to me about his name, something I've never heard before, Arthur Fleck, is that if you put his first initial in front of his last name, you would get Affleck, which might be a friendly nod in the direction of the man who, at the time this movie started anyway, had been and had plans to remain DC's Batman, Ben Affleck. or it could have nothing to do with it at all. That's the great thing about this trailer. It gives away just about nothing about the movie, but it's got a load of Easter eggs. So check it out. The link is in the description below the podcast. Also, a very happy birthday. 54 years young to, my God, I can't believe he's 54. Robert Downey Jr. It was all over the internet today. Tweets from his fellow cast members in the Marvel Universe like Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, who did a video along with Tessa Thompson, Chadwick Boseman, someone who I don't believe is involved in the Marvel Universe, but I'm sure would love to be, the very funny Mindy Kaling, Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, Tom Holland, who spoiled the secret. Everyone was going to keep Downey's birthday under wraps, but Tom Holland had to go and shoot his mouth off. Sorry, I'm kidding. That is a reference to a recent episode of this podcast titled Tom Holland Does Not Get the Script. Meanwhile, Downey Jr. sent a birthday gift to all of us. I think he's got this whole thing backwards, but good for him. It's a cool little crossword puzzle that he sent out on Twitter, and I will attach a link to that too in the description for tonight's podcast episode. Now, before I go, something I've only been hoping for, something I really imagined was a tease, not something we would see in our lifetimes. And, this is just people talking, but it is significant talk from people who have not spoken about this at any time during the last 20 years. And as more than one of these people begins to speak up, it now seems quite clear that we're going to see some kind of angel reunion. That's right, some kind of angel reunion. I don't know if that means as much to you as it does to me. There's been a lot of great TV, but I find Angel to be uniquely rewatchable, uniquely relatable, and all these years later, it looks very fresh. It is still that original of a concept that it hasn't been beaten. And unlike Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it may in part hold up a little bit better than Buffy because the HD remasters of Angel are beautiful and flawless, whereas whoever, and this has got nothing to do with the cast, Joss Whedon or anybody else, it's some department head or digitizer or something at Fox or Warner's or whoever is in charge of doing this. But the remasters to that show are horrifying. I mean, really something to see and then forget you ever saw. So this talk of an Angel reunion actually began with David Boreanaz, and I really didn't think he meant it. I don't know why. He seemed to be sort of lighthearted and like he may have been just literally teasing. But that now looks much less likely, and it now appears as though he was very serious when he appeared a month ago on a show called The Talk, and Angel came up, and Boreanaz said, quote, "We're coming up on 20 years. I mean, that's amazing to have been blessed with a show like that, and that's where I really started my gig, this acting world. I love that character. So I will say there may be something coming up. I don't want to give away much. I can say it's 20 years coming up this fall, and we may have something in the works." So one reason I was a bit dismissive of that was the repeated use of the word maybe, and the slightly offhanded, like a bit of a mischievous gleam in his eye, but like, I don't know. I hear maybe too many times, like, oh yeah, I'll believe it when I hear more about it. Today I heard more about it from J. August Richards, aka Charles Gunn, a key member of the Angel team from the end of season 1 through the real end of the series itself, that brutal season 5 finale. So J. August Richards was talking with comicbook.com, and he had this to say regarding an Angel reunion. Quote, "I wanted to share as well that this summer, we have a really incredible Angel 20th reunion surprise coming, and I can't say what it is, and I can't say any more about it, but I can say that you will not miss it. You won't be able to miss it." Oh, wow. That sounds almost threatening. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about that. Well, count me in. I am absolutely on board for an Angel reunion. As I said, it's one of my favorite shows just about ever. It says so much in this fantasy world about human nature, and so I really can't wait. Looking forward to both learning and reporting more about it. So thank you very much as always, and please get in touch with the Matt Sager podcast. You can send me an email to matt@mattsager.com or call me at 646-535-4788. You can also get me all over social media. On Twitter, I'm @MattSager. On Instagram, I'm Real Matt Sager. And on Facebook, well, my personal page is The Matt Sager. My voiceover page is Matt Sager VO. And come on, you gotta like this podcast page. It's facebook.com/Matt Sager Podcast. Check out a link to my Patreon or just listen to me now and enter it into your browser. It's patreon.com/Matt Sager. As for everything else, my voiceover reels, contact information, articles and blog posts, and even archived back episodes of this podcast. That and more is available at my website, mattsagervoiceover.com.